In the beginning, Berd created a Rust server. Here's everything that's happened. Week 1. Cringler Cavern is born, and many people join. People like Dr. Samuel Hayden, Beans, Virgo, Emmett, and Doc quickly become known on the server. Some were known for friendship and others for raiding. A few days after the server is opened, Doc starts calling people brothers. This quickly leads to a group larger than the 3 per team rule. The group would consist of Virgo, Beans, Didgeridoo, Tiny, and Maraca. Dr. Samuel Hayden would join randomly, and everyone would move to live with him. Tiny and Virgo would be lost in the process and never seen again. 2 new groups would form in the later weeks. The first is the Bear Annihilation Committee, and the other is the Bear Acceptance Committee. The Bear Annihilation Committee would survive and continue on, as the Bear Acceptance Committee would fall into obscurity. The Frosty Clubhouse would predate the server, but would gain traction in the server as a smaller but more scrappy faction. The week would conclude with a bang as Berd blew up the server, restarting for the next wipe. Week 2. Cringler Cavern would be reborn again with slight changes. Bears would spawn more frequently, and resource gathering was decreased by 5%. Doc would join Dr. Samuel Hayden in the cold region on an ice sheet. He would meet Flablord, Beans, and Saxton soon. The group from before was named the Brotherhood. They would continue to expand in the cold region and would form a large village in the ice sheet. A Spoon would pretend to join the group, but would shoot Doc and take his guns. This didn't bother him too much, but he was to not be trusted for the time. The Brotherhood had a code of trying to help people and being an open community, while also trying not to break the 3-person limit. The BAC would be an open community to everyone, allowing people to come in and out of its walls. This would make it easily one of the largest groups on the server. Berd, the owner of the server, would take notice of this and would fly his scrap helicopter into the back many times. This would fail, as the BAC would rebuild in record time. Hot Gamer Grill, a previous enemy of the Brotherhood, would join the Brotherhood. He would become a valuable asset, helping the Brotherhood win many battles against hostile players closing in on the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood would also help smaller players in the server who struggled with being killed by bigger players such as Genesis, Emmett, Maxo Frosty, and many others. By many, the Brotherhood was seen as the police force of the server. The Brotherhood would soon meet with the BAC in an attempt to raid the large oil rig. All 6 players would be thwarted by Berd, as he saw this as too many people to be raiding anywhere. Emmett and Max would take Doc and Flablord away from the large oil rig and bring them close to their base, making them seem not so bad to the community. The week would end with a quiet reset. Week 3, Cringler Cavern was reborn again. This would be one of the most controversial and shortest wipes in the server's history. The primitive wipe consisted of no metal structures, no guns or explosives, and no electrical advancements. This would cause many players to either completely quit the server or only play for a few days. The Brotherhood had decided to base very close to the BAC, which had expanded very rapidly due to the help of the Brotherhood. A player by the name of Lupus would be griefed and raided multiple times by another player named Casio King. Casio would become infamous in the server's history as he was the first instance of a KOS player, a troll, and a racist. The Brotherhood and the BAC teamed up to stop Casio King from raiding Lupus. They succeed and push Casio out of town. This wouldn't be the last time they would see him. 3 days later, Casio would return with more people. Raymond and Nat would join in the killing and raiding of everyone in the Brotherhood and the back. This would start an all-out war with Casio and his group. The Brotherhood and the BAC teamed up and pushed Casio and his group into their home, where members camped in an attempt to kill Casio. Suddenly, Berd would drop down from above, furious at Casio. There were only 3 rules on the server: no offline raiding, no racism, and no being toxic. Casio broke all 3 of these rules and banned Casio King, Raymond, and Nat. This would put an end to the conflict. Mid-week wipe. During the middle of the week, Berd wiped the server early. This was very unusual, but was explained by Berd wanting the whole server to get a head start on gathering resources. The resource gathering rate was decreased to 0.3%. This made it absolutely impossible to get anywhere in the game. This would almost kill the server, as all the players had left due to this major inconvenience. The server would soon be wiped again, as nothing eventful happened due to the low player population. Week 4. Kringler Cavern was reborn as Goo Goo City. The server was still low on population due to the last wipe. Key players that were absent from this wipe were Black Day, Beans, Dr. Samuel Hayden, now Nut Dealer, and many more. This would lead to a large power gap in the server, which would soon be filled by a new player, with the Brotherhood now in disarray. Doc was left to wander the mountains alone in search of Flab Lord or Nut Dealer. It would be a long time before he would see any of his old teammates, while none of the original members of the BAC were on the server due to the previous wipe. Toop, a player who joined the BAC during the 3rd week, tried to find where the new BAC would be. Doc would soon meet up with Toop, as he had introduced him to the BAC during the 3rd week. Toop would introduce Doc to a player named Shrug. Shrug seemed like a leader who always had a plan to advance the base. Eventually, the base would be declared the BAC by Toop, even though this was not approved or known by Black Day. Emmett and Maxo Frosty had formed a group called Frosty Club and used this group to raid monuments on the server. They would only occasionally fight with other players. One fight was with Shrug. At the time, Shrug was seen as a good member of the server who would help others, upholding the values of the Brotherhood and the BAC, but after the encounter with Emmett at Heli, this would change. Shrug was furious and vowed to get revenge on Emmett. Server War 1, the first raid. Shrug would convince Frosty Club that he would like to fight with the other members on the last day of the server. This would make them lower their defenses, and while Gangstamoy was the only one online at the time, the BAC attacked. This would be considered an offline raid, as the person they were targeting was not online. This would be a massive blow and upset to Frosty Club. They would then move away to rebuild and attack again. This would be the first of many raids. The second raid. A few days after the first raid, Shrug would continue to build materials. Still holding the burning rage of vengeance, Shrug would gain enough materials to start a second raid. This was unusual because it was well known that Frosty Club was still down and didn't have much. When Shrug arrived with Toop, they were met with a fight by Frosty Club. This would be a quick battle, as Shrug would quickly enter their base and take it. As a last effort, Gangsta, Emmett, and Max would take everything and move to the hemp base, a small base that Gangsta created with the intention of growing hemp and other various foods. Shrug still wanted to go out with one last bang. Little did he know, the feelings of the Seaver were changing. People didn't see the BAC as the BAC, and some started calling it the PAC, the People Annihilation Committee. Black Day would become aware of this fake BAC and would vow to return and take his group's name back someday. The third raid. A few days before the raid, Doc had created a small water farm off the coast of G12. After seeing everything that was going on, Doc quickly gathered everything and moved it to the hemp base after being invited by Gangsta Moy. Doc would vow to defend the hemp base in the name of the Brotherhood, giving life to the Brotherhood once more. Doc would convince Hot Gamer Grill and Flab Lord to join him to do what they had once done before, and defend a small base from strong invaders. As the pack closed in on Frosty Club's last base, the compound, Max, Gangsta, and Zerzal defended the base as much as they could. What was unusual about this raid was that the posse somehow managed to gather 4 new players. These players had never joined the server until the day of the third raid. Koki, Measy, Smelly Daddy, Toop, and Shrug arrived at the base and sent many rockets into the compound. The battle did not last long, as they broke through the walls easily and looted everyone. The pack went home. Everyone felt a sense of dread, as there was nothing to stop the pack. Berd would soon catch wind of the antics on the server. To save face in the server to not let his friends get banned, Doc blew up the pack to show an even raid. Because Emmett was not online and people viewed the whole reason for the raids as Emmett's fault. The whole situation could be viewed as an offline raid. So, while everyone except Toop was offline, Doc blew up the pack to save his friends from an offline raid ban. This would be a somber ending to Week 4, as there was nothing left to do. The first monthly wipe. Starting in week 5, the server would go through the new monthly wipes. No major changes would come to the map or server for a whole month. However, the server would remain dead for almost the entire month. The server would remain in a sleeping state for much time to come. Weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8 would remain uneventful with no major clashes, as almost all major groups had left the server. This wouldn't remain like this for long, as rumbles of a return were on the rise. The second monthly wipe. The server was reborn as Goo Goo City. The server was pure vanilla. Everything would remain quiet until October 21st, 2021. The server was reset as the Rust server had completely gone down due to the server host corrupting the files. The server would restart to how it had always been, ready for raids full of bears and a clean slate for players to get wild in. But first they must appease their god Berd by slaying the player known as Nizzle for his crimes against bearkind. Berd had blamed Nizzle for the disappearance of all the bears. Nizzle had reached out to Berd to get the server back as it had gone offline for the new updates. Nizzle had been attacked by everyone, even being killed by the Frosty Club. In an attempt to get revenge on Frosty Club for the killing, Nizzle had killed a random player thinking they were from Frosty Club. The person he had killed was Toop, a member of the pack. The pack would revenge kill Nizzle. Nizzle would soon meet up with the player known as Raccoon, a former member of the BAC, and would convince Nizzle to join him in a new version of the BAC. This would bring up a very short war of the pack versus the BAC, a war everyone was waiting for. The war would end as soon as it started, as the leader of the pack would leave for the military, leaving Toop as the new temporary leader and the only member of the pack. All seemed lost for the pack and seemed like the group would disband, until the unimaginable would happen. Toop would meet a player named the Kettlehead and would go on many raids with him. One of the raids was on Kettle's former basemate who had stolen all of his resources. Toop would ask Kettle to join the pack, making him not so alone in a solo group. Nizzle would go back to being alone and wish to stay alone for the rest of the wipe. Raccoon would leave the BAC as he was now all alone and would surprisingly join the pack. After Raccoon left the BAC for the pack, it would be the final death of the BAC, as there were no remaining members of the group left. It would also bring up the question of what happened to the Brotherhood. While the underscore doctor was still playing on the server and was active some days, the only member that was still on the server from the Brotherhood was Flablord. The rest of the members had gone to other Rust servers to spread their message of being good people to one another. The pack would be a dominating force of the server, leaving no player standing and only doing things out of self-interest. They had become more ruthless than any other versions of themselves in the past. Eventually, they would step up against Frosty Club again, reigniting an old feud. The pack would kill all the members of Frosty Club, consisting of Gangsta Moy, Smiley, Mr.Person Man, and Kermit _the Frog. Smiley, declaring himself the new leader, sought war against the pack for their actions. The rules of the war were as follows. Allow both groups enough time to gather materials. No offline raiding. Groups were allowed to recruit new members. This would be the start of Server War 2. Server War 2. The war would start with the final visit from Berd, giving everyone flashlights, before disappearing, never to be seen again. Small skirmishes were being fought at monuments across the server. Bystanders were left helpless to watch the war. The pack gave people the option to join the war effort or to be crushed in the war. Frosty Club was not as harsh but left the same message to other players. 2 days after the war started, an incident happened that's still debated if someone committed war crimes. Ambush at the pack. Raccoon had decided to kill Frosty Club members with an M92 at their base. He then had to log off for the night while members of Frosty Club gave chase. Frosty Club members did not know Raccoon had logged off for the night and brought tons of explosives to the pack. Nizzle teamed up with Frosty Club and helped the Foundation wipe the pack. Members of the pack saw this as an offline raid. Members of Frosty Club saw this as a justified raid and an offline raid. This would cause members of the Frosty Club to leave the group. After the Foundation wipe, Toop was so disheartened that he quit the game entirely. He did vow to come back eventually and take his revenge for his fallen group. The pack had finally disbanded, leaving Frosty Club as the only major group on the server. Many people saw this as an offline raid and broke the rules of the war. Max O. Frosty, the true leader of Frosty Club, called the actions of his group a pussy move. People felt as if they could not trust Nizzle, as he had helped Toop gain a lot of the resources for war, only to join Frosty Club and Foundation wipe the pack. The server would wipe for the Halloween update. The third monthly wipe, the server was renamed Berd's Fuckaroni Supremo server. Toop would return to the server ready to wage war on Frosty Club again. Frosty Club had also gotten on to do the same. The sight of war was on the horizon when suddenly a player named Alleging Mold started asking everyone on the server random questions about bases on the server. The next morning, members of the Pack and Frosty Club had come online to find they had all been raided. Kettle had been the first to be raided by these people and had gotten the info on them. Kettle talked with them and found out they were players from the UK, resided in the J5 coordinate, and their names were Alleging Mold and Olcapod. During the day in the UK, they had decided to raid everyone on the server for fun. No one was happy about the J5 crew raiding or Foundation wiping them. All players from all previous groups had decided to band together and take down the J5 crew. The _ Doctor was the first one to arrive at the J5 crew's base. He wanted to reach out first with a letter to the people at the base. Unfortunately, the letter never made it to them and had gone to a player named the One Gamer 4202, the only female player on the server. The Doctor had gotten back to the base again, being the only representative of the Brotherhood. Next to arrive was Toop and Raccoon, leader of the pack and former member of the Biak. The last person to arrive was Max O. Frosty, leader of Frosty Club. Together they decided to form the Coalition, a group dedicated to stopping those who have wronged them or others. With their powers combined and many hours, they had managed to break through the walls of the base. They got into the first layer of loot rooms where members were able to take back their stuff. It was agreed no one was leaving until the players inside the center of the base were dead. After many hours and hundreds of broken tools, everyone broke through the walls, killed the J5 crew, took their stuff back, and set up a universal base. Everything ended with everyone grouping together in one base and all groups disbanding. In the end, everyone stayed together as the Big Boys Club. Berd killed the server on November 16, 2021. The Big Boys Club continues to zurge on other Rust servers. Epilogue. Berd would reopen the Rust server for 1 month in October of 2022. People from the Big Boys Club rejoined to play, but nothing of merit happened. This is considered the reunion wipe, where all previous players could hang out as friends once again.